In the article, What's Cooking America by Linda Stradley, she wrote that ever since the dawn of time, mankind has striven to create the perfect cheesecake. The Roman name for this type of cake, which was derived from a Greek term, is called placente. Placente was more like a cheesecake, baked on a pastry base or sometimes inside of a pastry case. They were also called the bum by the Romans and were often used as an offering in their temples to their gods. Small cheesecakes were also served to the athletes during the first Olympic Games held in 776 BC on the Isle of Delos. As you can see, cheesecake has been for a very long time. Today, I will be telling you how to make a pumpkin pie cheesecake. I feel qualified to tell you how to make a pumpkin pie cheesecake because I have been baking for 20 years, which means that I have failed many times and therefore only know how to make myself better. My favorite thing to bake is cheesecake, especially since I have a 7-year-old daughter who loves to eat it. This is her favorite dessert. There are 3 main steps to baking a cheesecake: preheating the oven, mixing the ingredients, and lastly, cooking it. Now that we know how long cheesecake has been around and that it doesn't come from New York and the steps that are involved, let's move on to how to make it. The easiest part in baking a cheesecake is preheating the oven. For the pumpkin and the crust, you'll need the oven to be set at 375 degrees Fahrenheit. After they are both out of the oven, you need to remember to set the oven down to 325 degrees for the cheesecake. Cheesecake has been the most difficult item for me to conquer. I usually either overmix it or bake it for too long. Charlie Voss wrote in a newspaper article in the Columbus Dispatch that one of the first lessons in culinary school is that baking is a science. Everything must be perfectly performed, and with this dessert, I believe it. Once you have successfully preheated the oven, it's time to move on to the assembling of the ingredients. I personally like to make my own graham cracker crust and puree my own pumpkin from fresh pumpkin. To make, the first thing I do is cook the pumpkin. You're supposed to cut the pumpkin in half and then put it in the 375 degree oven by also rub canola oil all over it. But I can't cut a pumpkin before it's cooked, so I'll cook it for about 45 minutes to an hour. And then I'll cut it and then put canola oil on the inside and then cook it for an additional 15 to 30 minutes, depending on the size of your pumpkin. Here's the pumpkin. And then I periodically check to see if it's done by sticking a knife inside of it to make sure it's cooked all the way through. Once that's done, pull it out of the oven so it can cool. For the graham cracker crust, I use a recipe from allrecipes.com. And first I grind up enough graham crackers to get 1.5 cups. And then I mix that with 6 tablespoons of butter, and then melted butter, and then a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. And also, don't forget your 1/3 cup of sugar. After the mixture is all blended, you need to press it into a 9-inch pan. And then you bake it for only 7 minutes, but be careful to watch it because it can easily burn. And then you want the pie crust to cool before you add the cheesecake mixture. I store mine in the refrigerator while I put the batter together. For the cheesecake batter, I also use the recipe from allrecipes.com, but I add or omit what I don't like. When I look for recipes, I always look for recipes that have the highest reviews. I read some of the reviews and then see what others have found most beneficial for them, and then just use that. For this recipe, you'll need 2 packages of cream cheese softened, 1/2 cup of sugar, 2 eggs, vanilla extract, cinnamon, and then your graham cracker crust. And then 1/2 cup of pumpkin puree and 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. In a large bowl, combine the cream cheese, the sugar, and the vanilla. Beat that until it's smooth, and then blend in the eggs one at a time. The cream cheese needs to be room temperature before you blend it, so I put mine in the microwave for about 12 seconds for each package. And if it melts too much, then you need to put it in the refrigerator so it can harden up again. Once you got the mixture all blended, remove 1 cup of batter and spread that in your graham cracker crust. Set that aside, and with the remaining batter, add your 1/2 cup of pumpkin puree and your 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. Gently stir that and then spread that over the batter and the crust. Now that you have the batter in the proper place, which is in the graham cracker crust, it is time to bake the cheesecake. Bake it in the preheated oven for 35 to 45 minutes or until the center is set. Mine took 35 minutes. Better Homes and Gardens says to check to see if the cheesecake is done. You gently shake it. If the outer part looks set and only a small circle in the center jiggles, then your cheesecake is done. The center will firm up when it cools. Allow it to cool and then either refrigerate it for 3 hours or for overnight. Now that you have completed all the steps necessary to make a pumpkin pie cheesecake, which are to preheat the oven, mix the ingredients, and then bake and cool it down, you are finally free to enjoy it. Whether it's for the holidays or just a cozy dessert between you and your loved ones, this dessert can be easily made at home if you just put a little time and perfection into your baking. Thank you for listening and have a good day.